I came to be in the 50s. As I look back, places and faces have changed. Many vanished from view. But a single memory brings back the years gone by. Food. A reminder of who I was, what I used to do, and the people who were with me. I am the voice of many. Through personal stories, personal archives. This is a collective memory of our food, our history. Coming to town in the mid-60s Singapore would most likely have arrived by sea. This was the era before cheap air travel. Presented before them would be a Singapore that was starting to show a different face. New buildings were scraping the sky. The city's old financial and banking industry was still important to the economy. And the streets of Singapore still a chaos. And the tourists, they came by on business or as families of military personnel. Though independent, Singapore in the mid-60s still depended on Britain for the defense of our sea and air. In 1967, Britain announced the intention to withdraw her forces. This decision was to lead to the years of great transformation. Mid-60s to early 70s. For ever so long, British, Australian and New Zealand forces took care of our defence. Sembawang as the naval and Seletar as the air bases. There were nearly 50,000 foreign military personnel based in Singapore at the time. Our economy hinged on their presence. 1 in every 10 of us worked either as staff or domestic help. 20% of the economy came from the support industry, including the supply of household products and food.
My parents had a little joint of shop houses in front of the RAF headquarters. And from there he has this shop that sells souvenirs and cameras and services to the RAF. When you are staying in the camp, when you visit a family, we also have to be polite also. We wear prim and proper, and we also have learned the manners to greet them. Everything is proper, everything is neat, right? And everything is all British.
Mr. Kaur is a flight science instructor, a career choice influenced by his days living within the Seletar Air Base. Today, his return to the airbase is accompanied by English weather.
This is the quarters of the British officers who stays here in these houses. They are nice bungalows. The British officers recognize us as a family, so they will always invite us to their parties, and on the weekends, right, they have barbecues, right, they have wonderful sausages, potatoes, and the stews, and these are all British tradition, and even that they make their own bread, right, and also they have movie screenings, and also they organize things like Easter's Day, Christmas parties. They will open up this invitation to people residing inside the camp.
Just outside of the camp is Jalan Kayu, a row of shop houses used to cater to people living in the vicinity of the base. One place in Jalan Kayu takes pride in its iconic dish. Prata. We cannot lay claim to this dish, but we can to its name. Roti is bread. Prata means bread. We love it so much, we said it twice. It's a dough stretched out to its thinnest dimensions, then fried and served with Indian curry or dalcha. This is a South Indian creation.
So South Indian, actually we make without egg, because the dough we make without egg. And some people, they put milk. Also, we don't put milk. Ours is actually pure vegetarian. Only the thing is, after we make the prata, once we go to the people will take something different like egg onion, mutaba, chicken, like that. So this is how we make. We modify lots of things, because in India, the way we do here is not like that. So here, the Singapore, we call it a Singapore dish.
The roti prata, as with many Indian dishes, catered to the numerous Indian workers in Singapore. Many were married but living out here without their families. The term is married bachelors.
Actually, my papa was in Singapore. Myself and my mother, we used to stay in India. So this is how was last time tradition was like that. Yeah. So my father asked me to come every year for annual vacations. I used to be here. I spend the time with my papa. My papa used me to tell everything, how did his business started, how hard he did, And then he asked me to do practice, He used to give me a kerchief, handkerchief, asked me to do and flip. So I used to flip because this is the only business we are going to run.
As the wheel of time turns, so does the form of the prata, its transformation and appeal to the multiracial populace. Though created specifically for the Indian taste bud, the prata, and especially the curry, is embraced by all races and is now one of the dishes of our heritage. The Jalan Kayu stall is one of the comfort zones for Mr. Kaur. Here he had his favorite food, cooked by someone who watched him grow up over the years. Today, a chance meeting brings them together.
Oh yes, as I was a younger boy, Mr. Aziz, which I know him, he was in his mid-20s, and I was probably 5 years old, right? So as I grew up year by year, right, he became even older, and I even saw his parents, his father, who was actually handling the pratas.
Yeah, when you're smaller, things now,
from the other side,
our good customer.
I eat
used to be, go other places also, you used to come here and take our food.
Yes.
You are happy.
I still remember the very good taste of all your prata and the biryani. Number one, the chicken curry.
Singapore, number one, famous one.
We are the only one that is in Jalan Kayu. There's only shop that is still around.
Yeah.
I see everyone is all new areas.
All the new one.
Right? This is the original.
Original, only this one.
Still now here.
Yeah.
By that time only we have two types of prata, which is only the egg prata or the plain prata. He has been also one of those key people who helped to make the prata, and he also cooked them and served it to us.
Just as Seletar was the major air base, Sembawang was the largest naval base. The area was home to thousands of personnel and their families.
I was brought up abroad on a naval estate, going to a naval school and leading a naval life. It was an idyllic childhood, not a lot to worry about, warm weather, friendly people, always lots to do and plenty of toys.
Derek Tate came to Singapore when he was 3. His father was assigned to Sembawang Naval Base. In all these years, his memories of Singapore remain clearly etched in his mind. A kind of life that he could never find back in England.
We got all our food from the coast store, and it usually came with a free gift, which as a kid I loved. Also, around by the shops, there was always a satay man selling cooked meats. We were warned not to eat it, though my brother tried it and many of the other kids did too. It never seemed to do them any harm, though. The ice cream would usually melt with the heat as I ate it, and I'd end up with half of it down my arm. This would happen even indoors.
One naval tradition that was perfect for the weather was the banyan, a navy picnic. usually held outdoors where the emphasis is on fun, food and frivolity. For the Navy men of Sembawang, their bunions were to deserted islands with picnics under parachutes. Other get-togethers involved the Britannia Club. The Britannia Club today is used as a landmark into Beach Road. Nearby is the nearly forgotten memorial. As machines turned the land in the 60s, they reveal the past. Unearthed were the mass graves of victims of the Japanese massacres. The remains were reburied at this site. Full length for the four cultures standing together in war and peace. We nicknamed it Chopsticks. It was revealed in 1967, 25 years after the fall of Singapore. In 1967, the British government announced its intention to pull out from Singapore. Our defense now lay in the hands of a new generation of Singaporeans.
Channel 5 premiere of The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Sunday, 7:15 p.m. on 5.
This is a curry puff, buttery puff pastry, baked with a mild curry stuffing. Modeled after this Indian version, also called a curry puff, baked with a flaky pastry. But people also call this curry puff. It's actually epok-epok, deep fried with sardines or potatoes, depending on the dot outside. And this should be called curry pop. It's deep fried with an egg inside. Got it? Good. So, what shall we call this new species?
One of an old-day schoolboy trick was to fold and fire paper bullets.
I'll show you how I used to make the paper bullets. It involves folding a small piece of paper. You needed to fold it pretty tightly. That's for maximum effect. In order to make it as painful as possible, we would then fold it into two.
By the late 60s, a new rite of passage was being introduced, firing real bullets during national service. Because of the British pullout, conscription was introduced in 1967. Among the earliest batch was farm boy Yeo Hong Eng.
Those days, those who passed out from any institution of higher learning or enlisted into the civil service, they have to undergo this national service. During my SBMT days, the recruits were from all over, like those who were just passed out from the secondary schools or junior colleges, or those who were not educated as well as dropped out, and also those Chak Ang Kong people, who were in the society for some time. Those instructors, they were really tough instructors. So during training days, they would shout at us, right? Scolded us and kick us if possible.
In the early years, Singapore Army instructors were tough, but the food was tougher. Yeo Hong Eng remembers his first Army dining experience.
When we arrived at the camp, each of us was given a flat tray, serving tray, and the first thing that was put on my tray was a bowl of rice. So I took a spoonful of rice. Well, it was quite sticky and watery. Then next, I began to eat my chicken. Wow, that chicken drumstick was really big. I thought it was my lucky day. I sink my teeth into the chicken. Wow, it was real tough. I couldn't get at the flesh, but I got the skin. Or it was tough like rubber.
Mr. Yeo entered national service in the late 60s. Many of the recruits did not have the benefit of an English education.
After SBMT, we passed out and to attend a course on language instructions. All right. After passing out from the language instructions, we were sent to various camps in Singapore as language instructors. All right. We had to teach newly enlisted recruits English language. Now, these people, some of them, the resistance was so great. Well, I went to different camps, right, to teach different groups of recruits. I finished serving my national service on 1st of July, 1971.
Over the years, army food has improved. But back then, it was a common cause of complaint. Army food is today a hot topic for men who served during bad food days.
SAF food in those days very oily. I think it's bad for cholesterol.
In those days, it was cooked by the NS boys.
The huge ladle and just dump the food on your tray.
The rice used to come in big clumps.
You know, the white bread is not as fresh as your gardenia bread. It's soggy.
Big amount of rice with very little proteins at the side.
These meatballs, if you throw it on the floor, it will bounce up.
This rendang chicken is actually not bad, you know, for once this rendang chicken is quite good. And then someone said, that's not rendang chicken, that's tau yu ba.
We used to envy the officers because not only were the officers being served separately, they had unlimited helping.
I always have to find somebody who will eat my food, otherwise we'll get punished.
NS food is just not good. Not good at all.
The rule in the cookhouse was no waste. Everything on the plate had to be forced down. Peter Chan recounts how he was the exception rather than the rule.
Most people would just throw away the food and dispose of the food, but in my case, it wasn't. I enjoyed the food. Because I enjoyed the food, I took more than extra than what the normal NS recruit would have taken. You know, lunch, when they serve, you have only a small portion of rice. Most people would tell the cook, no, enough already. And here I was telling Palin more. See, would you believe, after my basic training of 15 or 16 weeks, I gained 5 kilos. When my parents came and visit, they couldn't recognize me. First, because of my haircut. It was really crew cut. Two, all of us were tan, so every son looks the same. Thirdly, I put on so much weight that my mother was very surprised.
The army not only trained boys to be men, but identified those with leadership qualities. Boys from all walks of life were picked and groomed to be an officer and gentleman. They also enjoyed the benefits of good food and service.
When I got into officer cadet school, life was definitely better because this was the first time that we didn't have to line up in a queue at a cookhouse. And the food quality was definitely better, much better. I mean, this time we didn't have things like soggy rice or what we call fermented rice, which doesn't smell that good. But after we were commissioned, life was even better still.
Army training had 2 locations, in camp and outside. Food was prepared ahead of time and sent out in 3-tonners for field training. These are known as wet rations.
It sounds a bit weird, you know, when we talk about wet ration. If we look at it from the other way, it is really wet in the sense that the rice was soggy. The sauce that comes from or the gravy that comes from the chicken is also soggy or wet. So everything was wet. So it's just like what they say in the army, this is called saipom. If you're officers, when you're out on a field camp, life was definitely a luxury because you know, you don't have to queue up behind your 3-tonner to get your food. In fact, what happens is that the GS table, which is actually a wooden top and with 4 metal legs, would be set up by the man for you. And all you need to do is that you just go up to the table there. There will be someone serving you the food.
The field training took the boys into open territory, visiting rural areas where enterprising folks greet them with makeshift rural restaurants.
Their kitchens were turned into frying bee-hoon with marling canned braised pork, or sometimes with canned fu yi. It cost $2 for a big plate, which could feed 4 NS personnel. The catering business survived because nobody was keen on the SAF wet ration.
Unlike today, army food back then was cooked by non-professionals. National Service not only formed leaders, it gave others a vocation.
Those days in the SAF, at least in the 70s as I understand it, we have vocations for drivers, we have vocations for mechanics, we have vocation for cooks. So someone who's not fit for combat could always end up being a cook. And it's really a plus point for these people because when they finish their national service, they can go straight into the industry to work. So a cook could actually join some of the well-known restaurants in Singapore. Many of them actually went out there, instead of joining a restaurant, set up their own Tzu Ta store already. And they've become very prosperous.
A Tzu Ta is a stall offering good, cheap food, a little more elevated than home cooking. It used to be a stall on a pushcart that rolled in at lightfall. Whole streets would turn into open-air restaurants. These became especially popular with the defense forces. And areas like Bugis Street obtained a reputation for cheap, good food and nocturnal activities. The countless F&B establishments, however, were seriously worried when the British forces began their pullout. But another war in the region proved to be a saving grace.